I'll call this meeting of the Standing Committee on Government Operations to order. Committee, there's an agenda before you. Today's business is the clause-by-clause review of Bill 8. All those in favor? Thank you. Committee, the agenda has been adopted. Declarations of conflict of interest. Hearing none, we will move into today's committee business. My name is Kieran Testard. I'm the chair of the Standing Committee on Government Operations. I'll allow members to introduce themselves for the record, starting with Mr. Nakamayak.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome. Herb Nakamayak from the NACBA.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome. Shane Thompson, Nehende.
Good afternoon. Danny McNeely, Sati Region.
Good afternoon. I'm Michael Nadley, MLA for Decho.
RJ Simpson, MLA, Hay River North.
And Mr. O'Reilly is joining us at the table. Mr. O'Reilly.
Kevin O'Reilly, Frame Lake.
Thank you, Mr. O'Reilly. And at the table with me are Jennifer Frankie Smith, Committee Clerk in Training, Committee Research Advisor April Taylor, and Law Clerk for the Legislative Assembly, Mr. Glenn Rutland. Today, the Standing Committee on Government Operations is holding a public clause-by-clause review of Bill 8, Emergency Management Act. Before allowing the Minister to present his opening comments, I will outline the purpose of Bill 8 for members of the public who may be listening in, and I will speak briefly to Committee's consultation on this bill. The government has introduced Bill 8 to repeal the Civil Emergencies Measures Act and replace it with a new modernized act that the GNWT proposes will update the management structure for responding to emergencies at the territorial level, better assist municipal governments in responding at the local level, and better reflect the current operational realities in the Northwest Territories. The Act implements a number of key changes to the way that emergency response is handled in the Northwest Territories, including establishing a headquarters emergency management organization as the lead authority, coupled with a territorial planning committee. Working together, these bodies will ensure that the skills and resources of those involved in emergency response are used in the most efficient and effective way. The Act changes the existing process so that ministerial approval is required to renew a state of local emergency. Committee was interested in ensuring that this change was acceptable to municipalities. We consulted broadly with all governments in the Northwest Territories responsible for providing municipal services in the Northwest Territories, and we held public meetings in Hay River, Enterprise, and Yellowknife, in addition to meeting with the mayor and council members in Inuvik. We heard general acceptance for this proposal, which ensures that the minister is aware and can bring territorial resources to bear on continuing emergency situations in municipalities. Another key proposal in Bill 8 is the proposal to extend indemnity to local authorities and volunteers working on their behalf so they're not liable for damage caused by any actions taken in good faith during an emergency response. Committee agrees with this proposal and heard no objections from municipalities to it. Committee heard a concern that Section 18(2) of the bill authorizes the head of a local authority to act on behalf of the local authority when there is urgency in declaring a state of local emergency. But the Act does not define the head of a local authority. Committee discussed this with our law clerk, who assured committee that there was no need to clarify this in law. Committee determined that it would be important in the implementation of Bill 8 to make the meaning of this provision clear to municipalities. Therefore, committee encourages the minister, when implementing the new legislation, to ensure that municipalities are aware, if they don't already know, that Section 18(2) of the bill refers to the mayor or anyone acting on behalf of the mayor rather than the senior administrative officer. Finally, Bill 8 clarifies an existing provision in the Civil Emergency Measures Act by setting out the circumstances under which the minister might require a municipality to reimburse the GNWT for expenses paid out on behalf of the municipality during an emergency. We heard some concern that Section 13(2) of the bill provides that the minister's decision on the matter is final. Committee had some discussion of this provision, and on the basis of the rarity of its past use and the clarifying circumstances under which repayment might be required, committee is satisfied with this provision as written. Therefore, on the basis of our consultation, committee is recommending no changes to Bill 8 as drafted. I will now invite the Honourable Alfred Moses, Minister of Municipal and Community Affairs, to introduce his staff for the record and provide any opening remarks the minister may have. Mr. Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good afternoon to committee members and staff. Thank you for the summary and update on the work that committee did in getting their consultations done around Bill 8 and bringing up some of the concerns and the work that was done. I would like to thank you for inviting me today to speak to you and members of the committee about Bill 8, the Emergency Management Act. I would like to introduce the officials here with me today. They are here to help provide technical details should such questions arise. They are Ivan Russell, Manager of Emergency Measures with the Municipal and Community Affairs on my left, and Mr. Ian Rennie, our Legislative Counsel, Department of Justice, on my right. Also seated in the gallery is Kevin Brzezinski, Director of Public Safety, Gary Sharity, Director of Corporate Affairs, and Ms. Trish McFall, Manager of Policy and Planning. Mr. Chairman, the purpose of the Emergency Management Act is to repeal and replace the Civil Emergency Measures Act. Bill 8 is an update to the Civil Emergencies Measures Act. However, it does not change the fundamental purpose and intent of the existing legislation. The Act defines the roles and responsibilities of local authorities and the government of the Northwest Territories in planning for, responding to, and recovering from emergencies. The bill permits us to effectively modernize emergency management arrangements for the Northwest Territories, and it establishes a dedicated public body to lead the coordination of activities of the government of the Northwest Territories regarding emergency prevention, preparedness, mitigation, response, and recovery. The bill increases the discretion of community governments to organize and prepare for emergencies, and it clarifies the responsibilities of community governments in meeting the needs of residents during emergencies. Search and rescue volunteers will now receive protection for the important work that they do in helping to keep residents safe in a part of Canada that is both rugged and remote. Much work also has been completed to update the Northwest Territories Emergency Plan, which is an important instrument used to operationalize the Act. Preparations and capacity building have been underway for some time, and measures have been planned to communicate our new direction to residents, community governments, and emergency management partners. Municipal and Community Affairs has consulted with the Legislation Division of the Department of Justice on a draft bill for the proposed Emergency Measures Act and intends to bring this bill into force upon assent. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I look forward to hearing comments from members and answering any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Minister. Does committee agree to conduct a clause-by-clause review of Bill 8, Emergency Management Act? Thank you, committee. We will defer the title of the bill until the end and begin with consideration of the clauses. There are 35 clauses in this bill. Does committee agree to consider the clauses in groups? Thank you, committee. Please turn to page 1 of the bill. To clauses 1 through 5. Does committee agree? Thank you, committee. Clauses 6 through 10. Does committee agree? Clauses clause 11 through 15. Does committee agree? Clauses 16 through 20. Does committee agree? Clauses 21 through 25. Does committee agree? Clauses 26 through 30. Does committee agree? Clauses 31 through 35. Does committee agree? Thank you, committee. We'll now return to bill number and title, Bill 8, Emergency Management Act. Does committee agree? Does committee agree that Bill 8, Emergency Management Act is now ready for consideration in committee of the whole? I need a motion from a member. Mr. McNeely?
I move that Bill number 8, Emergency Management Act, be reported to the Assembly as ready for consideration in the Committee of the Whole.
Thank you, Mr. McNeely. Motion's in order. Motion's on the floor. To the motion. The question has been called. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Bill 8, Emergency Management Act, will be reported to the Assembly as ready for consideration in Committee of the Whole. Thank you, Committee. Thank you, Minister. Thank you to your officials. And thank you to everyone else who joined us, which I assume is our sound technician. We are adjourned.